Hi, everybody. This week we move into Wunjo as of yesterday, which will be with us through the 28th of October. I'm doing the cast a little bit different just to kind of see. It spoke differently, so we'll see how this goes. But everybody is already accounted for in the spread, and some different things came up with this. So Wunjo is the final rune of the first et, and it is the rune that everybody wants to come up in their rune casts. It means joy, simply, and it also is this experience of having worked through all the aspects of souling in form that the first et introduces us to, and realizing through that how connected we can be, what our potential for interdependence can be, and particularly coming through Gebo, what our experience of belonging can produce. And so, in a manner of speaking, Wunjo is our experience of that. Like it's literally our reaction, how we respond to holding that information about ourselves, about the pluriverse, about being in form, how amazingly miraculous it is, and just really being in touch with how when we pull all the threads of souling in form together, we really have amazing and impactful agency. And more than just having agency and we realize its impact, we understand how we can use it to our benefit, as in all of our, not just ourselves, but to our community, our planet-wide community. So Wunjo comes in with some really strong, amazing, powerful affirmation. And as with both of the endings of the first and second et, it's a high note. It's maybe the highest note of the entire Futhark. I guess that could be a matter of perspective. So Wunjo is what we are left at. And because it's only the first week, I'm not going to dive into where we go from Wunjo too much. But I think it's a high note for a reason, because we can only stay oriented at that soul level for so long. And I don't mean that we become unoriented to it. Maybe we do. Maybe some people do more than others. But to clarify, there is an experience of being on this planet, whether it's intentional in the way it comes together, whether it is an accumulation of ancestral generational stuff, it's challenging. And that is what we move into in the second et. We really start to feel how our agency impacts other people, ourselves, and how we are impacted by other people's agency. It makes sense that Wunjo is an extremely high note, because it's ultimately a reminder that no matter what comes through the second and third ets, our potential of Wunjo is always there. It is always part of who we are. So the rune that came up to complement Wunjo this week is Isa. And that seems like a particularly precious combination, meaning sit with it, enjoy it. And I don't just mean like sit around thinking about joy, but be joy, embody joy. That's what Isa is ultimately about. Isa is this experience of rest, but it is active rest. It is the understanding that we don't get to move on to the next thing until we have fully grokked the current thing. And the current thing is joy. So, as happens, there's probably going to be a little provocation around that, because, it doesn't come easily for me. I don't assume that joy comes easily for everybody or other people. And so there may be some buttons pushed by having to sit with something that you don't feel you deserve, or having to sit with something that you may not genuinely feel you've had much of. Or if you have had it, something happens that disrupts it. There are all kinds of caveats around our relationship to joy and what might be able to come from embodying it over this next week. And I feel the urge to say it's only a week. In all manner of speaking, it's only a week that we have this seasonal proximity with joy. It's only a week that we have to sit with what might make us uncomfortable about it. The direction that came in this week is this lighter shade of the green dwarf. This is West, or Vestri. For me, West is left. Like when I'm standing facing the orientation of my cosmology, as I have been most recently shown to do, it's north, like where most people open their circles in the setting sun pattern starting in the east. I open from the north. And so for me, West is also left. And it represents promise. It represents literally open grasslandscapes that are just there to hold us and for us to bless and for us to engage and live in reciprocity with. West has this very agrarian component of nature for me that the other directions don't necessarily have, the other cardinal directions. So with West, there's also this experience of like what we can cultivate, what we can make, and knowing that we need to cultivate, and yet leave as small a footprint as possible. The element that came up is water. Tiny thingy of water. Water is my happy place, or at least the edges of it are my happy place. Water for me is the experience of motion that changes as needed, motion that changes at will, and this experience of always being carried back home. That is what water ultimately represents for me. It can be ocean, it can be all manner of things, it can be ice, and in the Old Norse cosmology, those probably would have been the two primary experiences of water, if not completely different elements in how they experience them. I think it factors most largely for me as ocean, and I always feel that pull of ocean, that everything came from ocean, our whole way of life as humans, as bipedal creatures on land, came from ocean, and ultimately it goes back to ocean as well. And so water is an incredibly powerful element. We have to have it to live. We live in this experience of potential scarcity of it, which threatens everything that we know. And it also can be very soothing. It can be terrifying. And we have to remember that we embody that. All of those qualities we also embody. And so I think that's probably a good connection point into the runecast for this week. Like, what about how we experience home is reflected in joy and vice versa, and what might be not so great about that relationship? I think that the relationship between water and Wunjo, for me in particular, is really powerful, and that could be a strong place to bring into meditation this week, a strong relationship. When I asked about season, this kid fell in summer, which we've seen a tremendous amount. Like I've granted for a few months there, the season at present asked to be the season represented in the runecast, and we were in summer. And then even when I was casting before and after that, summer came up a lot. And so I feel like summer is really relevant to our psychological relationship to Earth right now. Literally the whole climate change thing. But also, summer is usually the place where we assume we can kick back. It's the place where we assume we're probably going to eat fairly well. We're probably going to have some more downtime. And we're probably going to have opportunities to be outdoors that we don't readily have in winter. And so, like, being able to hold those components of how we have traditionally thought of summer and holding them alongside how we actually experience it might bring up tension. Maybe not. I mean, maybe it isn't changing all that much for some people. But I can tell you, especially with the experience of hurricanes and duration of heat and extremity of heat, it has dramatically changed where I live, and it is ever present in my mind that I can't just keep honoring it the way I remember it. And that the way that I'm honoring it is changing, like hour to hour in some cases. So again, if we bring that back to joy, like summer's always thought of as a really joyful time. It's family time, it's community time, it's outdoor picnic time. How does our relationship to joy change given that our relationship to seasonality has to change? It has already changed. When I asked about an earthly helping spirit for this week, an experience that I had yesterday, actually, last night, is what came up. And the being that spoke was ocean, hence all of the ocean random beings who kind of represent their own voice in the runecast at different times. And at first I was like, well, that's going to be loud. They're all going to be really loud in the runecast. But they actually weren't. As I laid them out and realized they wanted to be laid out in this particular orientation, and for whatever reason, like this one, like 4 times I would lay it out like that and walk around and come back and it would be pointing the other way. That's kind of stuff's been happening a lot in the house lately. But they all wanted to be arranged this way. There's kind of like a fish thing happening. I don't know how obvious that is, but ocean. So we haven't had ocean as its own discrete presence in the runecast before. And at risk of repeating some things about water, ocean is home. Ocean is where everything came from. Ocean is where everything rushes back to. The experience that I had last night, at risk of being not too overly personal, I was looking for how to regulate. Like, something that I've noticed is, when people present different approaches to regulating your nervous system, by which I specifically mean like calming it down, bringing it down, particularly after triggers, not just like every day looking up and life happens, but I don't have to tell y'all, every day is dialed up maximum every day. And it's one thing after the other, and every one of them is big. And that's the way it has felt for months. And it has not dialed down at all since the hurricane. And so that's kind of what I was bringing into this inquiry of my well ancestors last night. And Bone Mother is who came. And we sat on the end of a pier at the edge of the planet, overlooking a cliffside with the ocean, the world ocean below. We sat there for a while, and I was like, this is cool, but it's not answering the inquiry that I have. And so she zipped me up in a jelly bubble, and she zipped herself up in one, and we dove into the ocean. And we went down, 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 as far down as you could go. It seemed like it took forever. It got dark, it got light, it got dark, it got light. And then finally, we came out in this place where there were what looked like 3 veins of water. Each vein was as big as a tree trunk that you couldn't wrap your arms around. Not like redwoods big, but big. And they were, 2 of them were intertwined a little bit, and one of them was close, but not exactly wound in the other 2. And when I touched the vein that was the closest to the ground that like I could actually reach, I felt the most comfortable in my body that I've ever felt in my entire life. Like as far back in single digits as I can remember, I did not feel this comfortable. And what stood out about that for me were several things, honestly, but the first thing was this is a place that has not been touched by humans, and it's one of several, but there aren't very many left. So there's no pollution wherever this was. There's no energetic tension from humans. There's no systemic bullshit trapping anybody. These veins cycle ocean water, and that ocean water keeps things moving and clear the way that they need to be. And where these veins are is just untouched. And I was permitted to lie down on one of them, and I thought, what if I get it dirty? Like, humans aren't supposed to be here. What if I get it dirty? But the message was, this was how all of Earth was at one point. All of Earth was this way, and that's the way that it was meant to be. And it has progressed to not being this way because of the interactions of the populations that has lived on it. They're not all human. We're just the ones that happen to be in the driver's seat right now, and we haven't done so great with that. But it was no short of like miraculous. It was amazing, and I absolutely felt my body, my nervous system regulate without me having to talk it down or do any weird breathing or jump up and down or anything. It was amazing. And I understood that I could come back to this point when I need that. The other thing that stood out to me was I've been shown tons of meditative techniques around this idea that there are places in the earth that are tapped into the core of earth in such a way that they are untouched. They are pristine, and they're available to us. They want this kind of relationship with humans that know how to be in touch with the earth this way and not try to mess it up. But they were always based around breathing techniques. And I would do them like 3 times and be like, oh my God, this is the best technique I've ever, it's amazing. It does exactly what I needed it to. And I didn't know I needed it to do that. But after about the 3rd time, they don't work. And I really struggle with breathing techniques, which probably means I should do more of them. This circumvented that whole insecurity breathing thing. And I don't entirely know what that means. We'll see what happens. I plan to make it a daily practice along with my other, like banishing at night and calling back power at night. This will be like another thing added to that. But I wanted to mention that because that's what this is about. This is about how you are supposed to be able to engage nature in a reciprocal way that keeps us all healthy. We can engage nature and leave a minimal footprint. We can go because we need something. It's okay to need something and to get that need met, and we protect what met the need. We protect that aspect of nature. And so that was just really powerful for me. That ocean was like, no, it's all the shells. It's all the things. They're not going to speak individually. This is it. So I guess if I have a takeaway from this, it's really, really do the work that Isa is asking us to do with Wunjo, which is sit with joy. Like really sit with it. Invite it in, have tea together, talk, shapeshift into each other, all of that jazz. Because whatever is happening right now on the planet, you need to let go of any hang-ups you have around joy. You need to be able to call it in as a being into your life when you need it and experience it and feel it. and you need to be able to breathe life into joy for others. The Galder that we're working with is Wunjo, Win, Isa, Ease, Isa. However, you need to work with these sounds to get them to resonate in your body core. That is exactly how that sound needs to come out. Go with it. For me, they came together this way. Wunjo, Isa, 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 Wunjo, Isa. What I felt in that Galder, it needed hand gestures. No, you didn't get to see that, but it needed hand gestures, and they were a very specific height in my body. Like it couldn't be down by my side. It was kind of at a heart level, like cycling in a circle, both hands. And there was this sense of like needing to usher some stuff out so that joy can come in. And there may be more in that interim. Like there may be, you usher it out, but there needs to be some cobwebs cleaned and some dusting and some sunlight brought in and some tea cakes made. And then you call joy in and you see what the relationship can be going forward. I would love to hear how this runecast shapes up for y'all. I hope that you are doing well in the world. And I look forward to walking through the dark time and the wild hunt with y'all in the next few months.